What's up YouTube, Capital G here. We're talking hand traps in this video and asking the question, are these becoming the new floodgates or are they already the new floodgates? And I don't mean in terms of taking away your opponent's ability to play the game. I just mean in terms of popularity, in terms of them being splashed into a multitude of decks and just kind of like impact on the game. Like how often you're going to just see these cards for the most part used in any deck that you happen to play at a regionals or a YCS or an ARG, etc., etc. I'll say pretty much within the last few weeks of last formats, I started noticing a trend, and that was Artifact Lancia popping up in Shadows. And it actually made a lot of sense because Shadows didn't really run like a reliable trap engine, so they needed obviously some way to stop themselves from getting Trishula'd, and it was actually, you could summon it from the deck using Artifact Sanctum. You could use the effect on field, and then since it was a light card, as all the artifacts are, you could obviously use it for the L Shut-Off Fusion or the regular one, making Construct. And then when it was in the graveyard, if you had no way of bringing it back like a Soul Charge or anything like that, Call of the Haunted sometimes sees play in like Shut-Off artifact builds, then you could banish it for BLS. The same thing goes with Effect Veiler, and it always gave you like a consistent light count, so you didn't have to rely on drawing like, you know, the White Dragon or Equip's Wyvern or something like that. Like you had a very good and consistent light count that could be summoned straight from the deck. But with well, I don't even know what to call this card at this point. If I should call it Yuki Yosagi, or excuse me, Yuki Yosagi, or if I should call it Snow Rabbit Ghost Ogre thing. Anyways, this is another card that sees a ton of play in the OCG, and it's coming out very soon. And this card has a ton of utility because you can use it straight from the hand and kind of blow up like any monster on the field. And it's like, not only is it 1-for-1 removal, but you can actually activate this card on the field too, and since it has an 1800 ass, it's pretty legitimate. So I'm looking at hand traps right now, and between Lancia, Ghost and Snow Rabbit thing, Effect Veiler, Max C, I'm thinking that hand traps are like gonna take over. And I think that there's a couple of reasons. One, obviously the limitation of Vanity's Emptiness kind of left like a void in a whole bunch of decks. Like if you're playing Volcanics or, you know, a deck like Yosenju, decks that really weren't that susceptible to hand traps, you kind of need, I mean, you kind of need to work other cards into those spots. I mean, some people have said Ring of Destruction or throw in other traps, but it does feel good to have potential protection from cards, you know, while not having to actually invest anything on the board, because things like Denko, Sekka have been migrated into the main deck. So if you just simply replace your Vanity's Emptiness with more traps, but then your opponent goes, you know, first turn Denko, it's like, well, fuck, what can I really do about that? As opposed to if you had an Effect Veiler, you could actually, and I have seen people win games off of this, Effect Veilering the Denko and then actually using their traps and like coming back and winning the game. I also think that the second reason is this deck right here, Cleafort. If you, well, I'm just going to assume all of you guys knew that hand traps were just absolute beyond garbage against the Cleafort deck. When I was first playing Teller Knights, I used to main deck 2 Maxis, and anytime I played Cleafort, I used to just cry. I used to be like, oh my god, this is so terrible, because you had to, like, when they played their second scale, you had the Maxi and just hope that they summon just to get a 1-for-1, and if they didn't summon, then you just, you know, you went neg-1, and even the 1-for-1 wasn't really good against that deck. I think that hand traps are starting to take over for those two big reasons, and I don't think that they're gonna go anywhere. Like I know that for kind of a while, maybe about 6 months or so, hand traps really weren't seeing play, but with the addition of the Star Seraphs, cards like Max C are just really good now, because, you know, the Star Seraphs, again, they kind of shine when your opponent goes for those big rank 4s, the one that requires 3 monsters, things like Deltaros. Well, it's pretty damn hard to get the Deltaros without special summoning. You know, Max C is absolutely fantastic in the Teller Knight matchup, because Tellers are one of those decks where when they kind of commit, they have to fully commit. They're kind of like Burning Abyss. Your opponent activates Call of the Haunted and you ask for a target and they're like Altier. If you chain Call of the Haunted, either they're going to give you the extra card or they're just going to summon an Altier and like potentially cut off the supply train. So it's in their best interest usually to get to Neb, and I mean that means that they're going to give you extra cards. And with Star Seraphs or Teller Knights being a thing, Max C just shines. I look at these 4 cards and I'm just like, I think they're all really good. You know, you could say that maybe Artifact Lancia is the most linear of the bunch. But then if you're thinking like I'm thinking that Necros are still potentially the best deck in the format, then I mean the card is just gonna see play until forever. And I mean, excuse me, the card is gonna see play until Necros just stops being like one of the best decks, because not only is it good against Trishula, but then it can interrupt their plays when they activate the Necros mirror, and it can also just stop them from being able to get to their mirrors, and then they kind of can't play Yu-Gi-Oh at that point, or at least they can't search their shit, and maybe you can just kill them during their next turn. So let me know what you guys think. I think that especially with Ghost Ogre Snow Rabbit coming out soon, I hate saying that, I really do. I think that hand traps are going to be just one of those things where you see like 3 to 4 of these splashed in pretty much every deck, because they just cover so much ground, and generally you'll find some use in every matchup for them. Thank you guys for watching as always. Subscribing makes life happy.